not a book that I often look at when I'm doing funeral services. But this is taken out of 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 19 and following. And I just want to bring a few points out of that. First, 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 19, it says this. Now, let me give you the context. This is David, King David, writing and expressing his feelings about the death of Saul, the King Saul, and his son Jonathan. And of course, Jonathan was his best friend. And this is what David wrote. He said, "A gazelle lies slain on your heights, Israel. How the mighty have fallen." Then down in verse 25, he says again, "How the mighty have fallen in battle. Jonathan lies slain on the heights." And then down in verse 27, he says again, "How the mighty have fallen. The weapons of war have perished." And then again in Samuel, we're told that David had a group of men that he called his mighty men. The thought I had as I was thinking about Marty's life and what I had learned about him is that our nation has lost one of its mighty men. You know, a testimony of service throughout his life. My question was for today was what constitutes someone who is a mighty man? In today's thinking, sometimes I'm not so sure that we get it straight. By today's standards, it seems to be the one who talks the dirtiest, acts the toughest, disrespects women the most. They can be the most disrespectful to law and to others, and can get the most money possible for doing the least amount of work. That's kind of what I think in our society today sometimes we consider great men. A person can act big, talk big, wear the biggest, baggiest breeches possible. That's not a mighty man according to the standards that we find in scriptures. Even in the movies today, we celebrate the guy who can drive the fastest, take advantage of the most women, and kill the most people without reloading. Right? But in the book of 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel, we are told what a real mighty man is. 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 22 says, "The bow of Jonathan did not turn back. The sword of Saul did not return unsatisfied." That's a mighty man. It's one who does not quit. It's one who doesn't stop. And that was one of the things I told Gail. I think about, I look at his obituary, I listen to what Marty you said, and the one thing that stands out to me is he was a guy that just didn't quit. He didn't quit in his education. He didn't quit in his military service. He served till he had an honorable discharge, and then he served as a police officer. And I think, and probably more important, he served as an honorable and faithful husband and a dad that you could look up to, someone that you could actually model your life after. I mean, what can you say more about someone than those things? He was a man who was faithful in church. He sat right back there. I learned later that Marty wasn't a back row Christian. Marty sat in a strategic place because he wanted to make sure that he had a view of everything going on. And I was a little concerned when I learned that one of my only police officers I had in the church only carried a .22 caliber. I think he said a .22 caliber pistol, but he informed me very quickly that if you can't do it with that, then you can't do it, sort of something like that. So I said, okay. Also, when Debbie passed away, I was sitting with Gail and Marty talking, and I will never forget this, talking about someone who does not quit. When Debbie came along, and I know that authorities and professionals said you ought to put her in a home, and that where people could take care of her, and Marty said, "No, we're going to take care of her." And they didn't quit. They gave her a wonderful life. And so that's the first thing I just wanted to say. In our standards today, we need more people that we can look up to. I hope that we're those kind of men. And I hope you're that kind of woman that can set an example where people actually say, "I want to be like you." 2 Samuel 1:23 says, "Saul and Jonathan in life were loved and admired." By the way, Saul was sometimes a little less admired and less lovable, but I I take it that, at a death of someone, David chose not to remember that Saul tried to hunt him down and kill him, but he chose to remember that he was, in part of his life, a great leader. And David was gracious that way. But Saul, and especially Jonathan, in life were loved and admired. Do you know what makes someone be loved and admired, what I think? I think what makes somebody loved and admired is someone who has loved and is admirable. It's by the life that they live. It's the love that they've extended to others. 2 Samuel 1:26, in the same passage, it says, you were dear to me. This is David, again, writing to Jonathan. You were dear to me. Your love for me was wonderful. David here is saying that he loved, and people loved and admired Jonathan because Jonathan was a kind of person who loved others. Man, what an example we can learn from that. Proverbs 18:24 says there are friends who destroy each other. But a real friend sticks closer than a brother. And I've heard that testimony in here today. Ultimately, I think what makes a mighty man is one who's putting others ahead of self. One who is, there's another part of this in verse 123. David said that Jonathan and Saul were swifter than eagles and stronger than lions. Quick to the need, quick to the opportunity, quick to the crisis, quick into the battle, and strong and courageous in carrying it out. That's to me, what a mighty man is. And I believe that we have lost one of our mighty men. The Bible tells us that for those that trust God, that love Him, that there is promised a crown of righteousness. I read the passage a moment ago that said, Jesus Himself said, I go before you. I'm going ahead of you, preparing a place for you. That where I am, there you may be also. And I believe that today, our loss is heaven's gain, as they say, that one of our mighty men has gone and is now gracing the halls of heaven. And so, just in closing today, I just want to say, we're going to miss him, and this church is going to miss him. As I said, one of the first people I just got to know briefly was Marty Phelan, and met with him and talked with him at a deacon meeting, and afterwards he lingered around a little bit and stood out on the sidewalk right out here at the end of this hallway and talked to me a few minutes about the church. And I said I wasn't going to say this, but I'm still going to tell it anyhow. And when we went to say goodbye, he shook my hand, and when he did, he put a $100 bill in it. and he just said, "Glad you came. Thank you for coming and being here." And I don't know, maybe he was trying to grease the rails a little bit too. I don't know. But I just know this. I just loved him and just respected him more than I can tell you. And so today, in closing, I'm going to say to Tammy and to Marty, and especially you, Gail, just to remember this, that the God who brought this man into your life, for you at 7 years old, the God that brought this man into your life will also fill the vacancy that's left by his passing. And God will be there for you. And for the rest of you too, that are friends and family and co-workers and those that really loved and respected Marty Phelan. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Let's sing one more song before we close our service today. I'm going to ask you to stand again. If you're able, if you're not, that's fine. You can